Audit Tuesday is fortunate to have a premier hands-on auditor, RobertBerry, known in the industry as that audit guy. On the identity and GRC front, we have Garrett Grajek, CEO of YouAttest, a 15 patented identity innovator. Welcome, both Robert and Garrett. Let's dive in. Robert, let's start by setting the stage. Can you tell the audience who you are and what you do at That Audit Guy?
Well, my name is Robert Berry. I like to consider myself an awesome auditor, and no, that's not an oxymoron. I do audits for organizations, both internal audits, consulting engagements. I'm also a published author. You know what? I forgot to say award-winning auditor, and I'm also a keynote speaker. And you know what? Here's a fun fact. I'm a certified public accountant, but I hate numbers. I really like people.
Wow. You would be
now that's unusual enough. An auditor that likes people, so that's good.
And Garrett, could you go ahead and introduce yourself as well, please?
Yeah, Garrett Grajek, identity guy. Not so sure I'm the people guy, but got 15 patents in identity, which is nice, which was fun in the career. Mostly, what was fun is working with the products in the industry and trying to push it forward on items. Usually, my brain is usually wired to see, okay, that's what we have to do. How can we do that quicker and simpler and with less pain? So that's what I've been doing the last, 30 years of my life in the identity space.
Great. Thank you both. For those of you in the audience, if you have questions throughout our webinar, please go ahead and enter those into the question section, and we will address those at the end. Let's start out with a question for Robert. Robert, in your audits, have you seen a situation where someone has access and shouldn't, and it's caused a problem?
No, that never happens. No, I'm joking. So, okay. I initially was going to tell you guys about some stuff that happened while I was auditing in the past, but let me tell you something that's really, really recent. So I have a podcast that I do on Fridays. It's called the Friday Fraudster. And what we do is it's kind of like Law and Order, right? We take headlines from the news and then we talk about them and discuss them. So this past Friday story was something that I would call unbelievable and unbelievably stupid at the same time. The US state of Ohio, they did something really crazy. So let me tell you what they did. We remember 5 years ago, we were all locked down. They told us 14 days to stop the spread, and that ended up being almost like 14 years. During that time period, we all got unemployment benefits. Well, not all of us, just a handful of us, and then some criminals, because now we're investigating those crimes and finding out that people stole a lot of money. So here's what happened. State of Ohio, they needed to process unemployment claims to figure out if people were eligible to get money. They had a backlog, so they hired another company to come in and help with the backlog. That company then subcontracted the work out to another company who hired several individuals. These individuals had access to this system, and when they had access to the system, let's just say they could do things that they weren't supposed to be able to do. For example, one young lady was able to look at her own unemployment claim while she was actually employed, and she took off the red flag indicators so that she could get unemployment while also being employed. Let me just keep saying that. Then she was also able to increase the amount of money that people would receive. So she accepted kickbacks from friends and family. Then once the backlog was caught up, they terminated her contract without knowing that she had stolen all this money. And she still had access after she was terminated. So she was still processing claims after she was terminated. They just indicted her 2 weeks ago. And the total of the theft was about $7.3 million.
Jeez.
So now everything that you could think of that went wrong as far as user access reviews, who has access, what can they do,
Wow.
all rolled up into that one story, and that falls into the you can't make this stuff up pile.
Absolutely. So that leads to another question, and maybe we'll kind of back.
One second, David.
Yeah,
hey, Robert, there's something just came up. Maybe it'll be up in your Fridays. Is the entire state of Nevada's services are down, and like they're calling it a network problem, and I'm like, I work for Cisco. I don't think that's a network problem. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That,
so I'm sure we'll have something come up on that. But I like what you're saying in that case, because what you were talking about there, my brain just screams RBAC. Is that you guys got it? Whatever account you have, sure, maybe she did have a legitimate account, but what should she have had all those permissions, right?
yeah.
And when we
Yeah.
do the demo with the silent Kasha right now, but he will show that how we can help you understand what permissions you've given this user.
Yeah,
Good.
and so going back to your story, Robert, we can certainly understand the crime might not be very easy or clear for those in the audience to understand the how. So for those of us that don't live in IT, can you explain user access reviews?
Oh, yeah. So you know what? And here's the thing that the problem that I see a lot. In organizations, departments always say, why do I need to look at my user access reviews? IT is just going to handle it. It's not really IT's job, right? So this is how I explain it to people. Suppose you work for an organization and, the job is going well, but at some point they decide they don't need you anymore and your employment is terminated with that organization. You go on about your way, you find another job. 6 months later, you get a message in the mail from them saying that they're going to prosecute you for theft. You don't know what happened because the termination seemed to be, amicable. You find out what happened was they gave you a company credit card. They forgot to get that credit card from you when you left. You accidentally used it at the grocery store 1 or 2 times, and now they think that you were trying to steal from them. The user access review is just ensuring that the right user has the right access to the right information at the right time. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Garrett,
and
anything to add
Robert,
on that
let
end?
me just go on top. That's a really
Yeah.
good point about user access reviews. What Robert said there was a user access review is not the IT department saying, yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not a user access review.
and think about this. Either you blame it on IT or human resources. Well, HR know that they know that the employee quit. Yeah, but HR doesn't know your system. They don't know your protocol. You should be the one leading the charge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a user access review to be legit, not by YouAttest, but under all the standards like NIST, CSF 2.0, et cetera, say that the account has to be reviewed by the business owners, by the
Yep.
business owners, by the resource owners, and say, yes, I'm good with these users. IT just is the arm that executes. They're not the people that know. They're not the business people.
Absolutely. And Robert, so to that end, have you seen some changes in attitude towards, the cyber audits in the last few years, especially with so much exposure being put out by the media, right? We're hearing more about this on a weekly basis. So what have you seen as far as changes in attitude?
Yeah, I think people in the GRC space are taking cyber more seriously, especially when you look at over the last 3 to 4 years. We've had several primary schools that have been shut down. We've had colleges that have actually closed due to cyber attacks where they have had their data stolen, locked up, restricted. So I think people are taking it more serious, but still think that they're looking at it like it's an IT thing. No, it's an everyone thing.
Or Garrett, anything to add there? Thank you for that, Robert.
There is something stuck out in mind. There was on LinkedIn this morning. It was the top 20 companies in the world based on stock value, whatever, in 2025, 2005. And then you compare it to 2025. 2005, and we're all going to age ourselves, so I got a little gray and it was whatever, right? It was the GMs, it was the Fords, it was Texaco, Chevron, Walmart. No, it's 2025. Every single company is cyber. I'm not saying like, no, Garrett, it was, no, all there is now for value is cyber. That's because that's where the value is. Our identities, our information. Information is value. I mean, just remember, y'all, when we talk AI, AI I worked for a great company that I was got all these patents and wrote a bunch of identity stuff for them called Silence. And the CTO took me aside and goes, Garrett, you understand AI? And go, I don't know, cursory. This is like 2016 or something, right? And he goes, remember, AI in traditional programming is programs create data. That's not AI. AI is data creates programming.
Yep.
So that's why the RobertBerrys of the world are so important right now, because they're talking to your industry and they're talking to you and goes, guys, it's not enough just to lock down, GitHub. You know what I mean? You've got to lock down your data, because that's where it's important. That's where you're at risk, and that's your value. Lose your data, like you said it in this call already. Some places like universities are out of business.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously there's a trickle effect beyond that as well. So, Robert, just given your experience, what are some of the fines associated with these breaches when the governing body comes in?
Oh, it really depends, because nowadays states have their own individual requirements that have fines and penalties too. So you can see, and the fines aren't small either. That's the thing that makes me curious as to why people don't take it more seriously. But on top of that, outside of fines, what about your financial loss and your reputation loss? I mean, I just told you the state of Ohio lost $7 million because of 3 people. Who knows what other kind of losses they had. So I think you've got the compliance loss, right, from fines and penalties. You've got the financial loss directly and indirectly because people are being paid to clean this stuff up. But then you have the reputation loss, because if you're a company and I can choose to go somewhere else, and I know that you're a derelict with my records, with my data, I'm not going to shop with you. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I keep putting myself at risk?
Right, right. And it's amazing because we hear about the online retailers, some of the issues, and yet we hear very little about the resolution behind some of those breaches, and they are still humming along, right? Interesting, interesting. If you could give some advice to organizations on how to improve user access reviews, what would that be?
I would say 2 things. Well, 3. One, stop relying on IT and HR. Take a look at who has access to your applications, because you own them, not IT. IT understands how they operate. You understand who should be operating them. So the first thing is take a look at who has access to your stuff. Secondly, stop doing those reviews once a year. You have to do them more often. It doesn't make sense, right? You got your oil changed once a year. Your car would just really be a wreck, wouldn't it? And then the third thing is, whenever somebody changes over to a new department, make sure that you get them out of your system, because based on my experience, a lot of times when fraud occurs, it's typically because someone has more access than they should have. And usually that access is gained over time because they're a trusted employee. They know the organization. They've worked in multiple departments and they've carried along access from those multiple departments. And then the next thing you know, they're releasing $100,000 wire transfer, and you didn't know that they could initiate a transaction, approve a transaction, and then delete the transaction that they just initiated and approved.
Wonderful. Garrett, anything to mention? Anything to add there?
The key word, automation. Automation is replicatability, right? And that's what we've seen with our customers, Robert, right? Because we're literally, their auditor, one of their customers said straight out, they were holding healthcare thing, and the guy was proactive, and he appreciated the external auditors because they told the enterprise what he had told them. He said, we're reviewing these once a year, which is nuts. He goes, this is not secure. This is not, and the external auditors said that to him. Said, hold it, your access to the PHI, and they're billing PII because it was financial data, is too infrequent. You have to do this more often. So they knew, he knew all along, but then he told them the only way we're going to be able to do this more often, and they wanted to get to once a quarter, was to automate the access review. So they went on the market to look for products, and they found us, And now they're doing them on the key accounts, which he's complete agreement with once a month. And there's no way in heck, you know that, Robert, any organization can do an access review of anything once a month if they don't automate, if they don't have some tool.
And Garrett, to that point as well, automation is wonderful and necessary and required, especially given the onerous activity behind user access reviews. But talk about the compliance benefits as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, audits are one thing that Robert, and you say that audits are expensive, and they become more expensive if you're inefficient with your resources, right? It's like, just because I know this, if you're not prepared and you go talk to a lawyer, any type of lawyer, you just ran yourself a bill. And that's the same way it is with the external auditors, right? If you say, okay, you can audit me, but you got nothing prepared, you got nothing, prep for them or whatever. Whereas a user access review, quantified, detailed, and done on a quarterly basis with the key accounts reviewed every month, you say, here's my reports, here's my data, here's my evidence. That goes a long way in not only meeting compliance, but meeting compliance in a cost-effective way. Because not being prepared and then bringing an external auditor that's just asking for pain. Got any thoughts of that, Robert?
You know what? I actually fear the fraud more than I do the external auditors, because
good point.
The damage that occurs when a fraud happens is far more damaging. But
good points.
And I think you make a good point too. It's weird how organizations won't listen to their own internal resources, but when an external auditor or someone like me, an internal auditor, comes in and says the same thing, it's usually not met with listening ears. I think that's odd.
In Robert, it is true. I read something the other day. It was on someone else's podcast that I really liked. And it said, it was like, well, why do you hire a contractor? And everyone's, gave an answer. He goes, no, because no reason you hire a contractor is to get a second opinion, right? Because we're all guilty of that. The people we talk to every day, whatever. Yeah, I know Garrett's viewpoint. Right? But you bring in Robert, right, is just completely agnostic, just learn your environment and looks at your environment and says, I don't know what political battles you guys have, but I see issue number A, C, and E, And I think that has a lot of value because it goes around and over all the internal stuff and just does what a contractor should do, which is give a second set of eyes and just say, and I'm agnostic, this is what should be focused on.
Yeah, Garrett, great point. These audits will expose where those threats are. And if you wouldn't mind also talking directly about how YouAttest and the solution that we have tackles some of those threats, be it dormant accounts, be it overprivileged accounts.
If you guys want to have fun, this is what I do almost all the time. Just go on it, and this is like your Friday fraudster. Just go onto your favorite LLM. I don't care what the heck you use. ChatGPT, whatever, Cloud. Gemini, Grok, and you say, so there's this concept called principal of least privilege, favorite LLM, right? POLP, NIST CSF 2.0, PRA05. So are there any hacks recently that you can tell me about that have occurred, dear LLM, because people were not practicing the principle of least privilege? I swear, I do it like 5 times a week. And it's like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. That was the one I posted this morning, was Ascension, right? Was it just like the story that Robert started with, what he was saying, basically an overprivileged account, right? And that's exactly what happened at Ascension. They were privileges were overprivileged and dormant and orphan accounts, right? Just to remind everyone out there, why does hackers like orphan and dormant accounts? Because the active accounts, people might do something with, right? then they, they make it shut off, make whatever. But a dormant account, no one knows what it's doing. If it's just there, great. A hacker takes it over and becomes that identity. So they go to town on those. So that's why those are so ludicrously dangerous and should be reviewed on a regular basis and removed.
Great, thank you. So proof is in the pudding. Is there something that you would like to showcase, Garrett, with YouAttest and our application to the audience?
Yeah, let me do. I like it. Let me do one slide, okay?
Yeah.
And then I'll have Kashif do a quick demo just to show how this is. And what we're going to focus on is the concept here of automating your access reviews so that you can, am I showing the right screen? Yeah, how YouAttest works. Watch this. So this is your environment. This is the environment, a risk manager, and it's someone in that position, and they're struggling. They got the regulations, guidances, frameworks, and then you have all these identity stores listed and not listed. Okay, and the concept here is we built a cloud product, a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant product that imbibes the identities. And when I say identities, what's really important in these reviews is the concept of metadata. Who has access to what? Who is the manager of that resource? Who's the manager of that resource? Who's the manager of that user? And then the product automatically by this GRC practitioner, which could be someone internally, could be Robert, he's trained in it, right? It could be your consultants, or we can even do this ourselves. Run this tool, and then as Robert kicked it off and says, this is not the people who do the review. They are not the people who are managing these resources. This guy's wonderful. He's your HR guy. No one talks to him. He's fine. He's managing things. He's not relevant to the review. To the review is the business owners. They sign off and say, yes, Bob, Jane, Mohammed should have access to this resource. Okay? And then it creates the report and goes back to the resource and actually does a cleanup. This is the detailed process. What it is a quantified, automated process of what enterprises should be doing on all users every quarter and should be doing on admin accounts every month. So let's go with the demo. How's that, Kashif?
Thank you. And yes, I agree. Expanding upon what you just showed and linking it to what Robert said, which I really like and agree to, that it's not just the IT's job. It's user access reviews are a cross-functional process requiring collaboration between business, IT, HR, security, and compliance teams. While IT handles technical execution, business data owners are ultimately responsible for validating access appropriateness. And that's what YouAttest is all about, which I'm going to show right now. And please let me know when you can see the screen.
And one quick point, Kashif, that was made
Sure.
with someone I was talking with last week, and that is these dormant accounts are costing businesses money. They are paying for seats and these identities, and it's surprising that they're ignored, right? And a lot of times the action follows maybe a departure, but a lot of times it doesn't, and it is costing businesses money. And so
yes,
just
100%.
Another point,
and that's and that's exactly what Robert said as well. He's scared of fraud more than he's scared of anything else with these things, because when you have these dormant accounts, it just creates the basis for fraud, and it gets your insurance high as well when it comes to business insurance.
Absolutely.
Right, Garrett? I mean, is that what we have seen in industry? Because they have to pay a lot of insurance premium.
And they're now doing, they're checking not only your SOC 2 Type 2, but a lot of them are actually doing their own due diligence. What are your practices? I mean, Robert, you have to admit, after your industry had a big buzz after the SolarWinds stuff, and the SEC said, yeah, I'm looking at its facial expression, looked at the SolarWinds and said, you said you did all this, but there's no documentation. There's no evidence that you actually did any of it. I'll let you comment on that, Robert.
Look, that one was so bad. There's no real comment. That was just failure all the way around.
Okay. See, Robert's from the South, so he's nice and polite. There you go. Well done.
All right, so this is the YouAttest dashboard. That's exactly what we do, what we have been discussing on this webinar. The product can plug into your IAM, but if that's not the case, it can always bring in the data into YouAttest from any resource that you have within the company and create audit using that data. And you can just delegate it down to anyone who matters. There are supervisors, security people, compliance managers, whoever you think should be the reviewer of these identities. You can delegate those identities to their respective reviewers using YouAttest console. How we do it? Let's say take an example of Microsoft Entra ID. We get plugged into your IAM within 30 to 45 minutes. That's our deployment time. Once we are plugged in, you have applications that users are getting access to using Entra ID. You have groups that people are part of, and they are inheriting those permissions you have given or granted to those groups. And then you have privileged access, privileged users who have admin access across the board, multiple applications, multiple environments. So you can target those individual users that you have given permissions or excessive permission as per their role required, and you can see what kind of access do they have within your environment using YouAttest. Let's create one audit for an example. Let's say application audit. You just want to see the applications I have, who can access those using Entra ID and using their email ID that we have granted to them, or we have assigned those emails to them, which is a unique identifier in this case. You will select your API source. It's just a click-through process. You don't have to do anything manual. Just name the audit according to the relevance. If it's a finance audit, whatever, just to remember what type of audit you're getting into, name it accordingly, and then select the due date. So if you are dealing with a couple of hundred users, maybe give it a few days, 3-4 days, or if you're dealing with a greater number, give it a week or so, a couple of weeks, and then click next. Now the tool is going to ask you, which application do you want to target? Do you want to go for multiple applications to see who has got access to those? Or you want to target one specific application, for example, finance in this case, and see who's got access to it, and just tell the tool to create the audit for you. It will spend a few seconds fetching the data. Those APIs are working, and they're getting the metadata. They're not getting any password, any credentials, nothing of that sort, no sensitive information, just the entitlements and the user profile attributes, the metadata, to show you what you're dealing with and who's got access to your resource. Once we refresh, it should come up with unique users it has pulled from your IAM, and these users can access your finance application. Let's see who those users are. 4 users in this case. They have username, email, who's their manager, who's their direct supervisor, who's the application owner or owner's number. If you have multiple, that information is being pulled by YouAttest, so you can delegate to either one of these, either the application owner or to the direct line manager. But we have a way, if you don't want to send out to either of these two individuals, then you can send out to anyone by the way of manual delegation by putting in their email IDs and make them part of this process. And it's not limited to one user. You can send it to multiple reviewers at the same time, right? So in that case, if one user is out of office, the other one will pick it up and become the owner. So you don't have to wait for that person to come back from his PTO and take over, and you keep waiting until that time. So you can send it to multiple reviewers. Now let's see how the process works. I'll just go for auto delegation. So it picks up the manager and the application owner and gives me the choice. Who do I want to send it out to? So I'll just go for the manager in this case, click confirm, and now the tool has started pushing out notifications to these respective owners, these respective managers or supervisors, and you can see that under delegated actions. What
And let me just go on top of Kasha
go ahead,
here. So what he's
please.
showing you is what the GRC person does. The GRC person is, the bright guy says, we got this app, it's related to finance information. We know it's a CCPA. I need these. I identified, and what he did, I identified these users into the app, and the product goes, oh, these are the managers. And then Kashif said the key verb there. It pushes out the attestation to the managers. Take it away, Kashif.
And just as Robert said, it doesn't have to be an IT guy. The GRC person could be anyone. It could be someone from HR. It could be someone from IT, from finance, from security, from compliance. Whoever is going to take care of this process is going to be that GRC practitioner. That's where that person will push this out to the relevant people that need to review the access and give their recommendation. So it doesn't have to be an IT person or a full-time employee just to do this job.
And
Now,
I think
go ahead.
I think one important thing to mention here too is in the workflow, once it's delegated out, the person that it lands on can then still delegate it further down. Because in the field, one of the real big bottlenecks is you think you've identified this one person and they may want to delegate it down further. So now they've got to go back to HR and try and update this Excel worksheet where they have the user listing or, something like that. But being able to delegate down even further directly in a system automatically, and it captures all of that, is just a time-saving feature.
Agreed.
Kasha,
Otherwise, it's stuck in the loop. Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kasha, for impact, stop sharing. I will be the manager. Okay.
Oh, that'll be great. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's see where it lands and what the manager or the reviewer sees in his or her inbox.
So Kashif was the GRC person. That was that little stick figure I put at the top of the screen. And now I'm going to be, in this case, and manager. And manager just received an email. Okay. It's, if you look at my clock down here, it would show real time or so. There we go. Here. It's literally just a few minutes ago. Okay. 10:33. I got this email right here. Okay. So anyways, let's go and click this email because that's how they get it. And it says, hey, YA manager, you have to do an audit, right? At 10:30. They click this link. Okay. And voila. What's really important here, is they don't see that mess. Robert, that world. The companies send out that huge spreadsheet, and then there's some cryptic email that says, look at the columns relevant to your name. People got day jobs. They don't know what the hell the person is saying. Our product says, these are the 2 users that are under me. Okay. And I look at them and go, oh yeah, I know those users. You can look at all the details around the users, all that stuff. Okay. I can do a comment. I can do, I can look what applications that person's assigned to. I can look what, see, that's all the applications. I can go into the groups, and I can certify, revoke, or redelegate. Push it out. Keep pushing these out. Okay. In the sake here, I am just going to certify them. But I could literally delegate it out to someone else and say, hey, these are all under Jane. Okay. And then I'm going to give up showing a screen, and my friend Kashif show your screen on how the GRC person now sees that those were complete.
Absolutely. And let me know when you have the visual of the admin screen again.
We have visual
Okay.
use.
Now that one of the managers has given the recommendations from his side, I'll just go ahead and refresh to see the progress. And I see Garrett has certified these two individuals, these two identities, and I can see and I can track those. But what about these two? I mean, this manager is not responsive. So do I need to write or keep writing those nag emails every day just to remind him? No, you don't. You just need to go to YouAttest. We have those email or notification templates that you can modify. You can change the subject, you can change the message, but most importantly, when you go to the reminder emails, instead of setting up those reminders in your Outlook and keep writing those emails manually, you can set up those reminders over here and you can choose the frequency of those automated messages going out every day, every second day, 3 days later, but especially when it gets overdue, you can change the frequency to every day and make a message a little bit more pressing. I don't want to say a bit rude, but yes, that's what the nag email is about. So as soon as they complete the process, they review their identities that have been assigned to them, this message will automatically stop going out to those non-doers now that they have completed the task. What Garrett showed you was just the worksheet, right, of recommendations made by the managers. What about execution of those revocations? Once you integrate YouAttest with your Entra ID, for example, it will become easier to execute if there are any revocations in an audit through a click of a button. Let's say this audit has been complete. Now it gives me the option to execute revocations either on the application level if it's an application audit or on the group level if it's a group audit, but it will not remove the identity for good. It will only suspend it or deactivate that identity from getting access to that target resource that you're targeting in the audit. Everything else remains intact. And Garrett talked about automation. Once you have created this audit, you can schedule this audit for a future date. You don't have to remember it that I have to create this audit every 90 days and just keep a reminder update it. You can schedule that for a future date, and when that date and time comes, it will spin up an audit, not just a reminder, but it will spin up the audit on based on the parameters you selected for the master audit, for the original audit. And not only that, you can choose to delegate or assign that audit upon creation. So after 3 months, when the system creates the audit, it will automatically assign to the user of your choice that you have selected during the scheduling process. So that makes a GRC person's job a whole lot easier when it comes to periodical audits. And if you have to do it every quarter, every month, semi-annual, that helps you create those automatically and hence addressing the automation to some extent.
Perfect.
That's it. And the final evidence for it's the
Yes.
PDF. It's a report either in PDF, which gives you all the information that you have seen the whole journey of an audit, from delegation to recommendation to execution, both in PDF and in CSV formats. And CSV is important when you're dealing with a lot of data, a lot of users, groups, and columns and everything, and you need to filter something out to present it, make it to your own use and show it to the management. CSV makes more sense. Otherwise, the most cleaner version, if you are dealing with only a couple hundred users, is the PDF. Over to you, Garrett and David.
Yeah, Kasha,
really
thank
good.
you very much for that. Before we release you of your duties, it's been asked and mentioned before, even understanding the risks of not using a tool or automation around user access. The question's been posed to me. So then do you actually revoke and delete these identities?
No, that's exactly what we don't do. We only suspend those identities from the target resource. So if you're targeting a marketing application, somebody's got access to that marketing application and you revoke that access, or would you like to revoke that access, it will only take away his access to that resource, to that group, or to that application. Everything else remains the same. But at some point, the local IT can go in there following their internal protocols and delete the ID for good. Well, some organizations would tend, they would like to keep the identities for 3 months because there are certain things associated with that ID that they would like to take care of before they delete it. So they can follow the internal protocols and then delete the ID. But we don't do that. We only deactivate or suspend the ID from the targeted resources.
Great. Thank you, Kasha. There's a couple questions that have been posed, and I think one will lead well into the other. So I'll ask Robert this first question that was asked, and that is, if the issue is culture, is this resolved with automation?
Yeah, I saw that one. That was a good question. I was about to type a response. But think about this. Maybe, because it depends on the cultural issue. For example, if the organization is one that happens to be cheap, they don't want to spend any money on anything, and they force their people to do these heavily manual processes, well, if the culture shifts a little bit and understands that if you spend a little bit of money today, it'll save you a lot of headache tomorrow, then yeah, automation will solve that problem. Now, if the cultural issue is something else, it may not. But in many instances, the cultural issues have to do with either money, attitudes, or behaviors. And if you fix those, then yeah, automation most likely can fix those. For example, nowadays with the advent of AI, a lot of organizations are saying, we will not use it. They're just banning it altogether. They're missing out on efficiencies. So in that case, automation would fix a cultural issue. So obviously it depends on the cultural issue that's at play, but most likely, yeah. Sometimes no.
Great. Thank you for addressing that. And then that really leads to another question that was posed, and that is around those two letters, AI, right? Garrett, would you talk about how AI is affecting what we do at YouAttest?
And this so much demonstrates why the world needs Robert and Garrett. Because Robert's really good. He talks to the culture, he understands the culture, he's talking to the people, right? I'm a technologist. I'm like, I look at something and go, guys, this can be solved, right? And we did. We solved. There was a great question, a comment in the chat room about shouldn't AI be able to help us identify these overprivileged and orphan accounts? And the answer is yeah, it really can. So are you all seeing this slide that says YouAttest Zero Trust? Okay, Dave's not in the right way.
Yes.
So here it is. It's a machine learning model coupled with intelligence that pulls information from your identity resource and then goes through the model and says, what the heck? Why the heck does a sales guy have admin accounts to your, to your AWS or to your Oracle database, right? And literally, anomalies those. But the fun thing is, and this is why we got the patent, and this is delivered, customers are using this. It also does what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to have a segregation of duties, that you have a concept of segregation of duty. The product enforces that. The identity trust score imbibes this and says, hey, I want to trust this user. You got SOD violations all over, your model's bad. And then something that I was told pretty much why we got the patent, which I rant about this topic, is all this great work about the Roberts around the world. They're doing all this great auditing work. They're doing all this stuff, right? And the cybersecurity guys never look at their work. And I can say that because I've worked on both sides of the world, right? They're looking at their wonderful stuff, they're looking at the crowd strikes, they're looking at their SIMs and all that, but they don't see the work that the auditor's done. That's what we're doing with this product now. We pull the work. All these comments have been reviewed and when they've been reviewed, and that gets imbibed into the score. So the score, if you haven't done a review in the last year, yes, your trust score goes down. But if you're doing them every month, etc., then your trust score goes up for these users. And I do think, and we are working with getting this information into the visual dashboards, into the products where the security people are looking. But I think this is a great way to quantify in a KRI, KPI way, the work that the GRC team is doing and saying, hey, our scores are up because the wonderful service and the contractors we're using are doing regular access reviews, and therefore our identity trust scores are up. And conversely, the other way. So let us know. And it's a great question out there about the AI and GRC. It is a powerful tool, And glad to say YouAttest already has it built.
Well, and this obviously helps with regulators too, because when they come in and there is an issue, they will try and assess how much culpability your organization has with a given issue. And if you can prove that you've done these reviews on a regular basis, you have your own internal scoring metric, it actually helps out some with any fines and penalties that may be levied.
Yeah, definitely need to be cognizant of that, of course.
That's powerful stuff there.
That it really
didn't know
is.
that, Robert. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So we've got some time here. Address some of the questions. Any final thoughts, Robert, on just GRC in general, and then obviously how we can contact and message you over at That Audit Guy?
Yeah, if you want to get in contact with me, if you need audit training, co-sourced or outsourced internal audit services, or just a really good keynote speaker, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, thatauditguy.com. You see a lot of my keynote speeches listed, and also my course catalog and some on-demand courses.
Hey, you have some wonderful material on LinkedIn, so appreciate that. And Garrett, how about for yourself?
I speak through the product. So just write us at info@youattest.com and we'll make this work for you. We'll get this going for you. Whether you're, a enterprise that needs this or a consultant that says, hey, I should be doing this for my practice. We're here for you.
And this recording will be available online as well, so you can revisit it. And please follow up with us or Robert at any point. We appreciate everyone's time. And we will see you at the next Audit Tuesday.
Fantastic. Great
Thank
job,
you, everyone.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you.